Hello fellow modelers, Bruce here. This video is going to be a little different than most of mine because I'm basically going to just feature a particular locomotive that I purchased some time ago and talk a little bit about it and its prototype, and at the end I'll let you know why all of a sudden I decided to feature this somewhat rarity. The locomotive is an Alco Sentry 415, which is a center cab switcher. It was manufactured by Alco between 1966 and 1968. Only 26 of them were ever built, and therefore it was really somewhat amazing that any manufacturer would make a ready-to-run model of it. But I had gone into my local hobby shop. At the time I was in my own town, and I typically went there on a Friday evening to shoot the breeze with the owners and any other customers that showed up, and this was sitting on the counter, and it ended up going home with me. Now, why in the world would I get a fairly generic model of an Alco Sentry 415 lettered for a railroad that never owned an Alco Sentry 415? Well, impulse is what impulse is. But I do have an attraction for center cabs, as I've mentioned before. Like I said, this was a rarity, and even though it was labeled for a railroad that never owned one, it was labeled for a railroad that did show up on my layout because the Jersey Central did run through the same area that my other railroads on my Jersey Highlands Railroad ran through, and so I could justify this thing showing up from time to time. Like many IHC, International Hobby locomotives, generic for sure, not a specific model of a specific Alco Sentry 415, but close enough to, for people familiar to look at it and say, oh, yeah, that's what that is. You can see it's a center cab where one front is longer than the other. The longer one housed the Alco diesel engine that ran the thing. It was rated at 1,500 horsepower, which puts it right up there with a lot of the famous and popular end cab switchers of the day. And even though, I guess, Alco at the time, 1966, they were starting to really struggle as a manufacturer to keep up with the big boys, GM and GE. And they were looking for market share wherever they could find it. So they designed this thing and offered it with 3 different cabs that differed in the height. One of their big customers, if you can talk about a big customer of a locomotive that they only built 26, was the Rock Island, who bought 10. They needed a low cab to fit under a bridge at the end of their yard. They were going to use this as a yard switcher. I guess it was really promoted to be a yard switcher, fairly decent, heavy duty maybe even yard switcher, or a light road switcher, or it might appeal to industrial users like quarries and manufacturers and so forth. So yeah, they offered it in 3 different height cabs, a low, medium, and a high, and they actually offered it in with 2 different types of trucks. One was supposed to have higher traction value than the other. So as I said, 26 made. Of that, 10 went to the Rock Island and 10 went to the Southern Pacific. So that's 20 out of the 26 which leaves a number of oddballs out there. The prototype, the demonstrator, if you will, was actually sold to, and Jim, I want you to listen to this one. The prototype went to Western Australia to work for the Hammersley Iron Works, and it is actually preserved to this day at the Pilbara Railroad Historical Society in Western Australia. One went to the Chehalis Western up in Washington State, and Chehalis was a property owned by Weyerhaeuser, so that was being used somehow in their logging concerns. And yeah, I think somewhere around 7 or 8 of them are either preserved or still in use. So yeah, if you're lucky you can see one. I think the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum has one. The as the locomotive, as I show you here, I'll show you running at the end. I think one of the concerns that buyers had was the fact that the weight distribution over the two trucks was much different, with the long hood housing the diesel heavier than the other, so traction was a concern. But yeah, they still had some on order when Alco closed its doors in 1969. So they had something that had some appeal there anyway. Alrighty, so enough chat about that. I'll show you this running, and then at the I'll tell you now why I decided to feature this and do this short video, and that is I came across a YouTube video that had just been posted here in late February of 2024 of the Chehalis Chehalis Western Railroad up in Washington State, right by Mount Rainier, using theirs, as I think they were about to abandon a lot of their right-of-way. And before abandoning it, they were going to log off any loggable trees that were along the right-of-way. And this video is really pretty nice, showing one of these Alco Century 415s in use. And the way they were grabbing the logs was with a link belt crane. It's cable operated, and the operator of that crane was just amazing with how the control he had over it. So I think you would enjoy that video. I'm going to put the link in the description. So I'll show you this running on my layout, and then I'll show you that link, and that'll be it for this video. So talk to you again soon. Just thought of one more quick thing that I wanted to show you about this model before I show it to you running. And that is, you can see it still has horn hook couplers on it. They are part and parcel of the front and rear truck. I am sure that with some cutting and chopping I could put KD compatible couplers on it, but I decided not to do that. I have some other locomotives, classic locomotives, that have horn hook couplers, and the way I handle that is I have 1 or 2 cars in my collection that has a horn hook coupler on one end and a KD coupler on the other, and that's how I run the train. So some of these that had horn hooks I obviously swapped out, but there's a few I did not. Alrighty, so you will see that coupler transition car first hooked up to the locomotive, and then a few other cars as well. See you then. Okay, so here we have the Jersey Central Century 415 on the tracks in Bangor, and hooked up to it is one of my cars that has horn hook coupler on one end and KD on the other, and that's that Peabody hopper you've seen in a few other videos. And then following up to that are a couple of Lackawanna coal hoppers with KDs on both sides. And I'll reposition the camera so you can see the train run, And one of the things you will note is that, as with many IHC locomotives, it is a quiet runner, smooth as can be. Alrighty, let's see her run. Now I'll just back her into the siding in Bangor. And there you have it. You can see maybe why I am happy that I bought this. This is just a sweet running locomotive. Alright, don't forget, check out that link I put in the description to see really something that's very rare to see, and that is an Alco Century 415 still in operation, earning its living, working in logging up in Washington State near Mount Rainier. And that special treat of seeing that link belt cable-driven crane in use by an expert. Okay, as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Talk to you again soon.